Hey, it's me. It's animated me. I'm your host, Andy Burrows, and it's time for another episode of Completed It. Movie reviews, pop culture, celebrity guests, and all that good stuff. Oh, and my good friend over there, Sasha Lari, that's my co-host. Hey, Satch, hit the titles, brother. Welcome everybody back to the channel. Yes, it's another marvelous Monday. Hello everybody. This is the Completed It podcast. I'm your host Andy Burrows, just freshly shaven for those that may have noticed. Neil definitely did. I'm joined by one of my illustrious co-hosts. The other one we think might be having an afternoon nap, but I'm joined by Mr. Neil. Neil, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. You and I are sitting down on a very bright and sunshine Saturday afternoon to record our marvelous Monday show for all the Completed It
Hmm.
fans. We're here to talk about for me, one of the first real Marvel movies that were like, holy shit, yes, this is it. We've arrived. The 2011 movie Thor. And yes, this was before Thor went all lovey-dovey and fucking
Mm.
Love Actually on us. This movie came out on the 27th of April 2011, lasting 1 hour and 55 minutes. Neil, what did you make of this? Obviously, this was the kind of like real, we were really building up to the Avengers now. I think we had Thor,
Mhm.
Captain America, then the
And
first
then Avengers.
Avengers movie. Where does this sit? A lot of people say this still now, after all the Thor
Hmm.
movies that have been released, and I think we've still got another one to come. This
Hmm.
still is everyone's favorite Thor and a lot of people's favorite Marvel movie. What did you make of it?
It's definitely my favorite Thor movie. I very much loved it as soon as it came out. I thought this was like the moment when Marvel was like, we can be different.
Hmm.
Because before that it was like we had two Iron Man movies and we had an Incredible Hulk movie. So they were all movies that were like, no matter what, we're in this world. We're on planet Earth, and everything that happens could theoretically happen. It was like we're in a standardized world. This was like the first moment where we said there's a universe.
I got you. Yeah, yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
I mean, it explained. We got so much more looks at like Loki was really explained in this movie.
Yep.
This movie grossed $449.3 million. What really
Hmm.
stood out for you in this movie? A lot of people, I was reading up on when we do these Marvelous Mondays, a lot of people, the critics were saying this was just an effects movie. It was there for Marvel to flex their muscles with effects. I'm like,
Nah.
and again, it comes back to what you said a minute ago. For me, this was a real Thor movie. I don't know what we'll get into it in a little bit. What the fuck happened to that franchise, the Thor, the
Yeah.
character? I don't know why they went down the lovey-dovey and with him and Jane, and it all went
Mhm.
very like in Love Actually, like I said.
Mhm.
But what was the standout bits for you in this movie? Because we all kind of knew when this movie come out, we all knew that we were heading for an Avengers movie.
Yeah.
That was it was pretty much done. It was all announced, everything. So we're like, right, how the fuck are we getting here? And this really pushed it on even more with even with the end credit scene with the Tesseract and etc.
Yeah.
etc. This was really where you saw Loki kind of being good but kind of being bad. It's probably why we all love that character and we still do to this day, even with the TV series that's come on. But what stood out for you that you really enjoyed about this movie?
I think what I really enjoyed about this movie was just like it sounds weird, but it's just the growth of Thor, rather,
Hmm.
Thor. It's the fact that he goes from being this like overgrown teenager, you
Hmm.
know, to being like, no, look, you really have to, that the father-son relationship between him and Odin's, and it's really small because if you think about it, when once he gets banished,
And Loki takes over.
Thor and Odin don't see each other again,
No.
right? And it's just that simple thing of like seeing someone grow into who they are. Like we've seen it when it's like, oh, it's the underdog. There's a million and two movies where it's the underdog becoming a hero. And like Thor is actually the reverse. It's like, okay, you're already the hero. And I was like, but now we need to knock you down a peg so you learn, so you grow to become the hero you're supposed to be. You're already a hero. Let's make you the hero you're supposed to be.
Hmm.
And I find that I really, really love that aspect of Thor.
What did you make of? I like the fact that they incorporated him into Earth. I thought when he arrived on
Yeah.
Earth, it's some what Marvel do well, and I think it's I
Mm.
don't know if it's underrated. The comedy that were in the I know you're a big early
Yeah.
Marvel guy. The comedy from early Marvel now I think it's a little bit forced. When
Mhm.
you watched Ragnarok, for me it was way too forced the comedy, and I think Marvel thought, oh yeah, let's make an entire movie full of
Of
gags
that.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and I didn't, but the comedy in this, when obviously Chris Hemsworth's character, when Thor goes to Earth, he meets Jane,
Mm.
he's in like their version, he's in a diner and he's trying to order
Yeah.
food. But I just thought early Marvel comedy,
Mhm.
today's Marvel movies haven't got a patch on it. I don't know, what do you reckon? 'Cause I know you're a big early Marvel guy.
Yeah. No, I think I agree, but I think it's more probably because the tastes of comedy, the taste of what is considered funny
Hmm.
is different now than it was in like early 2000, like 2011. We're what 14 years removed from that now.
Hmm.
So it's like what's changed in 14 years. So a lot of the comedy is different, but also I think at the time it was Marvel were just trying to be like, okay, we're kind of, this is a movie, it's an adventure movie. Adventure movies tend to have comedy. This is not an action movie, it's an adventure movie.
Yeah, I
And
got you.
adventure movies tend to have a lot more comedy. Whereas like now, as you say, it's forced, but I think a lot of it is just like because people are trying to be so like not offend anyone. So it's like we're trying to make it funny but not offend anyone whatsoever. So here it is. Whereas,
Yeah.
early Marvel, it was just like we're just gonna do this because we think it's funny. And if you think it's funny, great. And if you don't, fair enough.
I think the
Yeah.
biggest difference
Oh, hello. Oh,
between
by the way, thanks for chiming in. Good
hey, so I'm
good
late.
afternoon.
Yeah,
Mm,
in addressing to the humor of the earlier Marvel films, you got to
mm,
understand, you had Josh Whedon, all right, even though he's not credited for Thor, which he did have a part to do with a lot of the humor in the screenplay, as
mm,
well as Captain America. Um, you know, it was very attuned to his style. And obviously, Josh Whedon, obviously, in later years, he got a bit cancelled, and
mm,
that's a whole other
No, he got
story for
very
another
cancelled. He
time.
didn't get a bit cancelled.
Yeah, he got a lot cancelled,
He
but
got a
but
lot cancelled.
either way, he was just a writer on these films, and
mm,
also it's a case of, Marvel knew they needed the funny bone in there because it's part of the formula. That's why
mm.
they get a director like James Gunn for Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's why they get extra comedy writers in there to because it's part of the formula of their formula anyway. Does it?
Do you
Does
think it's a
it?
bit forced nowadays, Sash? That's what me and
Well,
Neil were just saying. Like the
it's
Marvel
down to
you've
the
got now,
writers. It's
the
down to
Marvel
the
you've got
writers,
now,
isn't
it
it?
just the when we were
And
talking about Ragnarok. Ragnarok was just like it was like watching a really bad Laurel and Hardy movie.
so here's the thing. Me and you severely disagree on Ragnarok, but I'll have to because I love Ragnarok. I personally think Ragnarok is in my top three Marvel movies.
Oh my! I preferred it when
I'm
you
going to
weren't
say
here.
that straight up.
And where how do I kick him out? This kick
As
out
a
of Zoom
film,
chat.
no,
How do I
bro,
Fair
kick him out?
enough. Fair
as a
enough.
film, not as a Thor IP based on the comics,
Mhm,
although they did borrow a lot of lore in that, and some things they got right, some things they got wrong. But that's with any movie, any of these comic book movies. But they went for the humor. And why did they go for the humor? Well, number of reasons. From a film perspective, not a comic book. I got to divorce my comic book fanboy. I want everything to be the same and no one grow up and stuff. Which is a lie. Spider-Man grows up to a point, but then Marvel in the comics
No
decide
one
he's a
growing up, says the
teenager.
three guys here talking
But
Marvel.
but here's the thing: for a film, Thor had
mm,
been on Earth for X amount of time. He was an angry guy in the first movie. By the time you get to the third movie, he shows growth in his character, in his journey as Thor. Quite rightfully so when he mentions it, throughout the film, and sure, Chris Hemsworth leaned into his own persona, for the comedy chops. And he's better at comedy than, you know, the thing is, Thor 2, although I liked it, I actually liked Thor 2. But when you look at the 23 films, it's deemed as like one of the worst ones, like amongst
mm.
general audience. Maybe not you, maybe not Neil here, because Neil's severely disagreeing. I can see it in his face. He's like, sharp
I
sash.
feel a Neil
But
rant coming on
yeah,
after
yeah,
this.
but
Mm.
look, people didn't. When you look at the box office numbers for Thor 2, okay, when you look at the audience reaction and even the critical reaction to Thor 2, it
Mhm.
was the shit one. I didn't think it was the shit one. I quite enjoyed it, but it did
Mhm.
have its problems. You had a villain that wasn't a villain. He was just a dude. And
Yeah.
when you hire Christopher Eccleston, okay, the Doctor, to to be the dude, that could have been anyone. That could have been you, Burrows. Seriously, could have been you.
I feel it should
Do
have.
you see what I mean? You don't hire a guy like Christopher Eccleston to play the Dark Elf and just be nutting. No scene of monologue, no nutting, no. Maybe he did have all of that stuff and it got cut because the director they had there, it wasn't Kenneth Branagh. They got a
Mhm.
hired Game of Thrones guy that went on to do Terminator Jenny Smith. Okay, and it's that guy is good at TV, good at taking directions from the showrunner because that's how you direct television episodes. But as a director, he didn't have his stamp on there. It was just like, I'm going to copy what Kenneth Branagh did.
Mhm.
Taika Waititi gets hired for Thor. Well, if you're hiring Taika Waititi, you're hiring Taika Waititi to do Taika Waititi. If you watch any of his films prior Thor, you know what I mean? That's what you're getting. Now, I'll defend Ragnarok for one thing. Ragnarok had a script, had a story, had characters already in place in that
Mhm.
film without Taika Waititi bringing this humor. Okay, because it has a story, etc. So when
Mhm.
Taika Waititi goes and puts his brand in of funny haha, it works if you like that kind of humor and if you like that sort of thing, which I do. I'm a big Taika Waititi fan, and what I got was a Thor version of a Taika Waititi movie, and I loved it. But
Mhm.
Thor Love and Thunder, that sucked balls. Do you know why that sucked balls compared to Thor Ragnarok? For me personally, wasn't the humor, because I said I like the humor, but what they did, he wrote everything, and they basically gave him unlimited power. Whereas the first film he did, he had, okay, you've got to do it with you have to do it set on this planet with like these factions. You have the arena, you got to have Hela, you got to have this, you got to have that. You know what I mean?
The frost giants, etc.,
Mhm.
etc.
Yeah. So he had to work within these paradigms. Whereas in Love and
Right.
Thunder, he went nuts. He went nuts.
Yeah.
He was like, I could do whatever I want. You know what? What will piss off people? I'm going to try and make Lady Thor cool. Us as Thor fans were like, no, no, please, no, with the Lady Thor. But they went and did it. And then not just the Lady Thor thing, just the film in general was just, why hire Christian Bale as the God Killer and not have him killing people? You know what I mean? That was a big dumb thing in that film. But
Well, I'm glad you've jumped through like a
rein it
month
back.
in
We'll rein
advance
it
for
back to
Marvelous
this
Monday.
movie.
Yeah.
Rein it
Yeah.
back to
Cheers,
this
mate.
movie.
In your own time.
Okay, sorry. I like this movie. I like this movie a lot. I liked it when it first came out. I like it now. You know what I mean? I
Would you
what's
say?
there
Me and
not to
Neil were
like?
talking at the start, Sash.
Yeah,
People still call this, and you've kind of mentioned it. We're going to let Neil come back to some of the points that you made in just a
yeah,
second.
sure.
A lot of people, we just said, a lot of people, this is still everyone's favorite Thor movie because even for me, this was what Thor should be. This is where we
Yeah,
maybe slightly disagree. For
yeah.
me, Thor should have been what I saw in the first Thor movie, not that heap of shit that I saw in the fucking Laurel and Hardy stand up, and then when he turned into flipping Love Actually when he filmed that movie, and
Mhm.
that was ridiculous. Love
Yeah, I
and
didn't like Love Actually.
Love, yeah.
I didn't like
What?
that.
It's one of the best Christmas movies
I
ever
like I
fucking
like
made.
the Laurel and Hardy, but that's
I
me.
love Lauren Hardy, but when you try and make Thor, etc., but
Mhm.
the 2011 Thor movie
Yeah,
was
yeah.
what all Thor movies should have been like. He's fucking Thor. He's the god of thunder. He's
Mhm.
not having a fucking end sequence to EastEnders where he's all mushy, kissy wissy, and fucking all this bollocks. This is what Thor should have been like. Now,
You know
Neil,
what?
and
You know what I would pay tooth and nail to see though.
oh god.
I know Ridley Scott don't like comic book movies, but if they got a script and they'd let him do a Ridley Scott Thor in that gladiator style with
Yeah,
that
I can see
kind of
it. I
epicness,
can see it.
I'm there,
I
opening day.
think if
But
if
it
Thor
depends on the
wasn't
script writers. It depends
Mhm.
on the script writers because The thing is, though, I think what would happen is Marvel would have to get a script that has the comic book elements,
Mm.
and then Scott would have to hire his people to bring that tone of that epicness, you know,
Okay.
and then you're probably there because all the groundwork's been laid by all these other films. But
Mm.
that's up
I,
to Marvel to
I,
put the marvelous elements in it, you
I
know?
feel like Sasha's coming with Blood and Thunder late to this
Blood and
podcast.
Thunder, yeah.
Yeah, but
Let's go.
I can see Neil literally chomping his own lip because he wants to come back at a few things he said. So, Neil, my friend, the floor is
Mhm.
yours.
Yeah.
Well, you know what it is?
We should
I
call
know
this
we're
segment
jumping ahead.
Neil's Rant.
We jumped ahead a little bit with we jumped far with
Yeah,
a number
Sash
of
went about 2
movies.
months on Marvelous Mondays.
I'm
Yeah.
He's
like,
done them
I'm
all.
like, I'm like a
You
Tasmanian
got
devil,
carried
man.
away, the
Come
boy.
on.
My so I'll say this, right? Thor Ragnarok is a better film than Thor The Dark World. However, the problem with Thor Ragnarok and Love and Thunder, as opposed to Thor and The Dark World, is the character doesn't grow. The character regresses. From Thor, Avengers, Thor 2, Thor's on this constant growth of maturity, of becoming, like, going from, like I said, he starts out as basically the high school quarterback in Thor,
Mm.
right? Who's never had to deal with the real world. He's never had to live, like, he's a life of privilege. He's never had to do anything. Thor is basically like Pride and Prejudice, right? He's like, just, I'm living the dream. I don't have to worry about anything. And then he gets a dose of reality. Here's the real world, you know? It's like going from being a teenager to being like, okay, well, here's a bill, here's the bills, here's the mortgage, here's all life gets at you. When we get to Ragnarok, it's completely different. He's back to being the teenager again. He's the jokes, and I'm not saying I didn't love it. I enjoyed the movie a lot. I really did enjoy the movie. But when I line it up and actually
Yeah.
dissect it, I'm like, this is regression.
Mm.
Because he goes from being like, in Thor 2,
Yeah.
he goes from being the guy who's like, I can't be with the woman I love because I need to be the king of Asgard. My position and me being a ruler of all of these people is more important than my own personal happiness, right? And then he struggles with that, and at the end of it, he's like, no, 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 I'm going to stay with Jane. I'm going to stay on planet Earth. That's what I truly want. He does that. And then in Ragnarok, we first see him, he's spinning around. He's in the jail cell, and then he's spinning around, and he's like, so, hurry, hold on. I swear I'm not doing this. And then he's talking, right? And it's all jokes, and it's everything
Ragnarok, he's
about
like
it is
Marvel's
just
Michael McIntyre.
right. Yeah, it's all jokes, and he's all just kind of, there's no level of like, there's no maturity to Thor, basically, in Ragnarok. And that was the problem I had with it. And
Well, I thought he
that
developed a
is
sense of humor because he was more
I mean,
human
yeah,
in
you
that
can have
I
a
film
want
than he
sense
him
of
to.
was
You
in
humor,
can
the
have a
but
first
sense of
one.
humor,
having a
but he's the
sense of
god
humor
of
doesn't
thunder, for fuck's
remove
sake.
your maturity,
Yeah,
right?
but I mean, when you look at him in the other films, he's very much an Asgardian.
Yeah,
Whereas what's it? Not Love and Thunder. Fuck that film.
Ragnarok.
Ragnarok.
Mm.
He's someone that's been on Earth. He's had a hot dog or two. He's watched a film in the cinema.
Okay,
He's he's
but
he's not,
he's
he's,
not
Comes to the
he's been
human.
a
podcast. He's
But
done a
human.
here's
review
the thing,
show.
He's been
right?
a
For
human, had a
someone,
relationship,
right?
and he, rather than being, I am Thor, ha, you know what I mean? Like
Okay,
he's
but
he's
here's the
he's
problem with that.
he's
No,
hung
no,
out
no,
with
no,
the
no, no. Here's the
Avengers.
Oh
problem
boy,
with
He's
that,
oh
hung
boy,
right?
out with
Here's
the
the
oh
big
boy,
problem
oh
Avengers
with
boy.
that.
for
Ding,
two
ding, ding,
whole
ding.
movies.
Seconds out.
Okay,
Ding,
Right?
ding.
how
End
do
of
you
round
not
two.
Okay.
develop a sense of humor, funny, ha, when you're hanging out with Tony Stark all day? Come on, man, and you know they're drinking buddies in the comics. Come
Right.
on.
Here's the problem with all of that.
There should have been an Avengers film
No,
before
here's
fucking
the
Age of
problem with
Ultron. That's what
everything
there
you
should
just
have
said.
been.
With all of that, here's the problem. Why has he got so much humor after he's lost his hammer and his father in the space of seconds? Right?
Because
You
sometimes
there's
grief
right,
affects people differently. Humor
right.
affected humor was his grief in it. Like What can I say?
Oh,
Poor
oh
poor
no,
Hey,
I'm
excuse.
gonna
hey,
go and
hey,
do the
hey, hey,
washing up
you
or
don't
something,
know,
and
man. You don't
I'll
know.
leave you
You
No,
to
don't know how that
no,
shit
poor
works.
excuse. To me,
Have you
poor
lost
excuse,
something? Have you
right?
lost someone?
Yes, several times.
Okay, so
Right.
all right, you've
Poor
experienced grief,
excuse,
but
right?
people react differently to grief, man.
Poor excuse to me. To me personally, poor excuse. We agree to disagree on that. But
Yeah,
rolling all the way back to Thor 1,
yeah, yeah.
Oh, we're doing
which is
Thor
where
one,
we're
are we? Oh,
supposed to
fucking
be,
hell.
Well, to be
which is
continued in
where we're
Thor
supposed to be,
Ragnarok. To be
right?
continued in Thor
Yeah.
Ragnarok. There we
Where
go.
we're supposed to be. I think
Yeah.
yeah, as I said before, I very much love Thor 1. I thought it was a great step forward for for Thor as a character, introducing him to the world of non-comic book fans. And also it was a great step into saying there is other stuff out there for Marvel
Mm,
Yeah.
because you know the three films that preceded it all on Earth, Earth-based characters, Earth technology. There's nothing special about any of it. And then we get to Thor, and it's like, oh, we're now so there is a universe, and we're looking at interdimensional beings, and we're looking at
More
you know
fantasy elements.
fantasy elements. And the fact of it took one really, really brilliant thing it did was in saying that, okay, Thor is supposed to be a god. Well, of course he'd be looked at and and viewed as a god if him with all of his technological powers arrived on Earth, during Viking period. So
mm,
when they mention that in the film, where they're like, this isn't, I can't remember which, I think it's one of the Warriors Three. They say, look, yeah, they said this isn't like, when you go to Earth and you summon a little lightning and then they treat you as a god, right? Because they were saying that, oh, they're not gods, they're aliens, right? Essentially, they're aliens or interdimensional beings, whichever way you want to spin it. And they travel to Earth. And then they did kind of somewhat retcon that by the time we get to Love and Thunder, when it's like, oh no, no, he is a god and here's all the other gods.
mm.
But they actually try and say these are interdimensional beings and we can understand why you would treat them as gods. And I thought that was a very interesting take to have.
Mm. What did you guys make of the take of the twist with Loki? Obviously, having difficult coming from a different family, obviously, the
Mhm.
Frost Giants, etc., etc.
Yeah.
I thought that's something that got a little bit lost in later Marvel
Yeah.
movies. Yeah, but it's kind of they done it here, and it's like, oh, that's a good twist. I like the fact that
Mhm.
Loki's not really he's part of the family, but he's not part of the family. He's got a
Yeah.
different parents, kind of thing. And as the Marvel movies went on, it's like they kind of fucking forgot that moment that they mentioned in Thor
Mhm.
2011. What did you guys make? Because I thought it set up loads of good things with the
Mhm.
Tesseract and stuff like that. And we knew that's
Mhm.
kind of where the whole Avengers movie went. Like I said at the start, that this really did set up what we knew to be Loki, but then
Yeah.
they forgot the part of him that wasn't from that world, if you know what I mean.
Mhm. I think for me, I think I very much enjoyed that change, that saying, okay, he's child of Frost
He's
Giant.
adopted, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was an easy out in regards to saying that, okay, this is why Thor gets picked over Loki to be next king of Asgard.
Hmm.
Because instead of it just being like, oh, well, of course it's going to be Thor. He's the firstborn, you know. I mean, obviously they retcon him being the firstborn because no, 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 he's got Hela.
Well,
Hela's the firstborn.
it adds more layer to it, doesn't it? I
Yeah,
mean,
but it adds more layer,
yeah,
but also it gives sympathy to Loki
yeah,
because now it's like, oh, you're not, it's we understand what your feelings are now
yeah.
because now you're in a position where it's like you were stolen from your home, you were a prisoner of war, you were all of these things. So how do you reconcile with being, am I just, you know, Odin's son in regards to, do you see me as your son, or was I a bargaining chip? Was I, a prisoner of war? Who am I really? It's like he goes through it's the opposite of Thor, but it's exactly the same as Thor. Thor goes through this thing of who am I without my hammer, without my powers, without all of that.
Hmm.
And Loki's like, who am I
Because he
Now that
kind of
I'm,
he gets the power for a little bit, doesn't he? He's in
yeah.
charge. He's the ruler of Asgard for a short bit. But
Mhm,
yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I mean, it kind of that's why I think I really enjoyed the Loki TV series because I just wanted to
mhm,
see more about him and like, that
mhm.
character. But yeah, I just thought as the Marvel movies went on, they kind of forgot his origin story, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Because it's not really. I can't name you too many points in the Marvel movies moving forward. Which will you
Mhm.
mention? Can you? I don't know if you guys can. Sasha, you've got the book there. You're not Marvel
I
guru.
mean, it gets mentioned that he's Laufey's son in Endgame right before he
Yeah, that's
dies.
pretty much about it, isn't it, really? I don't know.
Yeah.
Sash, do you know any more?
What was the question?
Fuck me. You've just gone on like a 20
How
minute
many
rant.
how
And the
many
one
times
question
does
I ask you,
Loki's origin does it, how many times does Loki's true parentage get
Oh,
mentioned?
right.
because they
Not
just
not that
mentioned
much. Only in the first film.
2011. Yeah, that's what I'm
Mhm.
saying. But they kind of just went, all right, like Neil said, they were doing it to get it in there and they had to kind of make
Maybe
him
in the
different.
Loki series very briefly, but like
Mhm.
it's not
No,
really
it's a thing
anything.
that it's
Yeah,
very rarely brought up. I
yeah,
mean, I think in Avengers it's brought up, in Endgame it's brought up,
yeah.
and I can't really remember anything in between that.
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think. But yeah, look, I for me this was my favorite Thor movie. It always will be my favorite. For me, the Thor character after this, and we're not going to get into it now because that'll be another half hour of just Sash shouting at me, telling me how wrong I am. But when we do get
You're
to
not
the late,
wrong.
no, I know I'm not.
You're
But
not.
no, for me this was my favorite Thor
Yeah.
movie. I thought it was really good.
So would you get Kenneth Branagh back?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you not?
No, I'm not indifferent. I think it's really funny because he was in an interview recently talking about how he wished he had a franchise. I'm like, but you've got the murder thing with, Mr. Clouseau, don't you? Like
Oh,
Mm.
Poirot.
Poirot,
Poirot, you got your
Amazon.
Poirot, man. What are you talking about? You wish you had a franchise. You gave birth to Thor, man. Like, what are you talking about? All you do is franchise.
Yeah, I know. Just briefly, while we obviously we're talking about the two. There's obviously we know we're getting a new Thor movie. What do
Mhm.
we think of? What do we? We're not. We won't get into it loads now because we've got loads of shows down the line. But what do you boys think of where the Thor character is going now? Thor's going to be a woman. I'm not quite sure. What's? Yeah, I don't know. I'm I'm on the fence.
For me, if they're gonna make a Thor 5, and you said that they are, if they go ahead with their plans to make a Thor 5, then what it needs to be, to me personally, is Thor needs to be in Odin's position,
Mm-hmm.
not as a ruler, but as a
Mm-hmm.
father, because at the end of Love and Thunder, he's adopted the girl, right? And he needs to be in the position of Odin, of trying to steer your child in the right direction when through whatever reasons, their arrogance, their whatever, they're going in the wrong direction. And then it needs to be a thing of where he can kind of see how and why his father made certain decisions.
Mm-hmm.
That for me would be the best way moving forward with Thor because we've seen Thor in every light. We've seen him be the ultimate, man of action, the god of thunder. We've seen him be the Joker, the haha, all the humor. We've seen him be the surfer boy kind of thing. We've seen all of these things, but I'm like, show me the grown-up Thor.
Is
How does the
this
grown-up Thor deal with that?
is this
Because
going to start the same argument with Captain America though? You know,
which
uh,
Captain America?
Well, exactly. The new Captain America, quote unquote, everyone's shitting the bed saying that's not Captain America. Are we going to have the same argument with this new Thor movie?
I think not because it will always be Thor. As long as I think one of the problems that we had with Sam Wilson Captain America
Hmm.
is there's I think most people, and I'm removing comic book fans from this. I'm just saying, if all you did is watch the Marvel films, right? You people must remember Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Black Widow, Hawkeye, right? Those
Hmm.
six individuals. We spent 10 years being completely and solely invested in them, right? I know, yes, we've got Black Panther and we have Ant-Man and we have all the, but
Spider-Man.
that the Avengers who line up in the Battle of New York, right? We've spent so long invested in them as characters, them as people, that you remove one of them and say, here's the new one of that. It's not gonna fly. It doesn't matter how you spin it. It could be passing of the torch, it could be somebody dies and we replace them. No matter what way you spin it, it's not gonna work. People became endeared to that. Chris Evans will never not be Captain America. No matter how many other people take the role. He's always going to be the Captain America. Tony Stark will always be the Iron Man. And when you change it, you have to remember people resist change. I resist change, right? Change is a
Yeah, I
difficult
don't
thing
mind
to
resisting
deal
change. I
with.
don't mind evolution with a franchise as long as you're
Yeah.
true to what got you to the dance.
Mhm.
If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it which works. And the thing is, it's a thing of these people aren't going to be who they are forever. Sam Wilson, Steve Rogers wasn't going to be Captain America forever. Tony Stark wasn't going to be Iron Man forever. There's always going to be change and development as these things happen. But the problem we have film wise is when you change a character, or when you pass the mantle to a new character, you're not making that character, you're not endearing the audience to that character the way you did the first one.
Yeah.
Everyone we're endeared to Steve Rogers because he was the skinny kid from Brooklyn, and then he was willing to, dive on a grenade when he weighed about as much as my backpack, you know, he would dive on a grenade for that. He was a true hero, and then he became Captain America, and he became an even truer hero. Tony Stark, we're used to seeing him drink, 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 and crack jokes and sleep with women and do all of that. And over the course of the MCU,
Sounds like
he
me in the
grew.
90s.
He grew into a stable monogamous relationship. He became, a husband. He became a father. All of these things happen. Whoever you stick in that next is not gonna match up. Even Hawkeye, right? I love the Kate Bishop character, and I love Haley Stanfield's
In the TV series.
portrayal of her.
Mm.
But I look at Hawkeye and I'm like, yeah, that's Jeremy Renner right there. When I say Hawkeye, I'm not thinking of anybody but him.
Mm.
So I think that's a problem that we have with the changing of characters. So when you say like, is it going to be the same problem? I don't think it will be the same problem Thor-wise, because it will always be Thor Odin's son.
Yeah.
But the issue will remain.
Mm. While we're just quickly talking about characters and the ones we love, I wish people would stop fucking releasing images of the filming of Doomsday. Did you see the one on Thursday with the Iron Man suit?
No.
Iron Man, there's going to be a.
I'm not looking for any of that
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, I had to block this
Yeah.
main Marvel page. They were like, oh, here's some images of filming.
Main Marvel page.
RDJ's in a fucking Iron Man suit. I'm like, yep, mute. I was like, fuck this. So, yeah, they released loads of images of
So
Doomsday.
you then tell me now in a podcast,
Yeah,
I'm
it's going to.
avoiding shit to
Yeah, you're not
tell
going to be able
me.
to avoid it.
Cheers.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
do. I do. I don't sign
now
up
that
for
we
that
know
stuff.
you're avoiding it, it'd be easier to not mention it.
Yeah, now I know, but yeah, there was a picture. Yeah, it's got to be like a throwback memory or something in the movie. But yeah,
It's
I'm looking.
probably, well, that's it. It's probably, I mean, the fact that they're using the same person, the same actor, it does give you the opportunity where you can say, oh, this clip is set between this film
How
and
do you
this
know
film.
that's
And they
not
use the
AI
character.
though? That's the other thing.
No, it was everywhere, bro. Everyone, loads of people got on it, and
Yeah, but
it's just
they're using AI to manipulate shit now, so you don't know whether those pictures are real.
all right, Donald Trump.
No, but it's true. I could show you some stuff with AI right now, and you'll be like, "What? You can do that?" I could put you like in the P Diddy trial if you really
Whoa,
want.
whoa, whoa! Don't be doing that, bro. Sheesh.
That's where
The
you
whole
went to. We're
like,
talking
I
about
could, I
Avengers
could
and
this guy.
Iron Man
What's
and
that?
because I
Daredevil.
told you,
There's
because
Boris
I
That's where
in the
your
told
room.
mind
you,
went.
I told you Iron
AI.
Man. I told you Iron Man was in the fucking movie, and you've gone all P Diddy on me.
He was like, oh, so you know
This
what?
guy, man.
You told me Iron Man's in the movie. You spoilt that bit, so
Yeah,
now
you're
you
going to jail
Uh,
with
now
P
you're going
Diddy.
to
uh,
the baby oil section.
Fucking hell, Sash. Sheesh. Well, anyway, boys, this has been another good, marvelous Monday. My microphone's deciding to fucking shit the bed. Here we go. It's been another good, marvelous Monday. Up next for us is Captain America: Winter Soldier, I believe.
No,
No, what's
that's
after Thor?
Avenger.
The
Oh,
first
is it?
Avenger.
Oh, yes, she is. And then Captain America. Yeah, I was going to say we haven't missed Captain America. Yeah, next is the Avengers, first Avenger, Captain America, then the Avengers movie. And I'm dreading when we get to the later Thor movies now. I might not even do it. I might just mute my mic, let you two just like put on a pair of boxing gloves and go. I reckon that's what I'll do. But anyone wants to check out our content, as always, go onto YouTube, type in the Completed It podcast into the little search bar. You can find us on X at Completed It Pod, but also on Facebook. Just type in Completed It Podcast. No Instagram, can't be bothered to do that. I do far too much as it is. But we'll be back later this week with our Karate Kid Legends review. Which I thoroughly enjoyed. But make sure you check that out. All our other content is online. The ballerina review really went down well. Thanks to everyone that interacted with us on that. But this has been another episode of Completed It. I am dreading the later reviews now with the Thor franchise. But till next time, everybody, I've been your host, Andy Burrows. Stay safe.
Feeling overwhelmed by the challenges of daily life? Struggling with anxiety, stress, depression, phobias, fears, or just trying to get yourself back again? Discover the transformative power of focused solution hypnotherapy and counseling. Through guided hypnotherapy, relaxation trance allows your subconscious mind to access your inner resources and strengths you didn't know you had. Book your free consultation today and let's start your journey together. For more information, please email Sharon at scm-therapy.me